I introduce from starting here with Burton Cummings, who plays piano and does vocal, and Mr. Domenic Troiano, like Helen and Troy, right?
Right.
Got it right. Back here, Mr. Bill Wallace in the green, and to our far left, Mr. Garry Peterson. It's a delight to have you four gentlemen here. Things have been going very well for you lately with Star Baby and now Clap for the Wolfman, but it really probably didn't start that nice back in 65 with, what was your first record?
There was actually before three of us were in the band, there was a hit record by the Guess Who called Shakin' All Over, which was a national top 20 hit in Billboard and Cashbox. The only person that was on that record was Garry, and the group has changed completely since then. But then in 1969, when we got with RCA, we had a rash of hit singles, starting with These Eyes, Laughing, Undone, No Time, American Woman, etc., etc.
You'd had a few bad experiences with record companies that didn't get behind you and push you and promote you as you felt
we got lost in the shuffle several times. We were with companies that had quite a roster of acts, and unless you're, you know, we were with Scepter Records, and they had Dionne Warwick and B.J. Thomas and some huge selling artists, so they had no time for us. We were with Fontana Records, who had Wayne Fontana and some of the British groups, right? And they didn't have any time for us. We were with Amy Bell, who had all kinds of successful R&B acts, and they didn't get around to promoting our records, and so on and so on. So finally, when we got with RCA, they got behind us a little bit, and the result was great for us.
Now, Bill Wallace goes back how far to?
About 2.5 years.
But not so far back as the Chad Allen and the Reflections group.
No.
That was the original inception of the thing, and as I understand, the name Guess Who came about in a very unique and unusual way. Could you relate that story to us?
Yes, very briefly. It was a promotional gimmick thought up by Scepter Records in 1964 or 65. When Shakin' All Over was released, it was in the midst of the British boom, and if you weren't from London, England, you just didn't get your records played. So rather than have just another name like Chad Allen and the Expressions, the company thought they should put the record out with Guess Who and a question mark. And no one knew who it was. They all thought it was some new British band, and of course it created a bit of a stir, and it was a top 20 record nationally, so the band thought that it should keep the name and put the in front of it. And I might add, it was about 1.5 years before anyone heard of the Who. Just thought I'd sneak that in.
That story he just told is the initiation for a new band member. You have to learn that story before you can get into that.
Sounds very interesting. Garry, you, all of you gentlemen are from Canada, is that correct?
Yes, we are.
And it's an amazing thing. The only way that I can detect it in speech is one word, and you know that word?
Out.
O-U-T. It gives everybody away immediately. There's been some very talented people come from Canada. We had Anne Murray a few weeks ago, and there again, she said out. And you could tell she's from a little town called Spring Hill.
Spring Hill, where they had the bad mining disaster.
Where are you from?
Winnipeg.
And
three of us are from Winnipeg, and Troiano is from Toronto.
Troiano from Toronto. Toronto from Toronto.
Bert, you write most of the music along with the help of Domenic, is that correct?
Well, the new album, we just finished a new album called Flavors, which will be out shortly, and Domenic and I co-authored everything on it in a relatively short space of time. So I think we've got a new writing team, so to speak.
A lot of people ask the question about the American woman being a anti-patriotic thing. By the way, I was going to get, I was going to come on with something. I was going to ask you before we got into this, what group of questions you didn't want to be asked? What are you most asked on interviews? What one question are you probably asked more than anything else?
Something about Randy Bachman.
That's right. That's one thing that has been coming up a lot lately, and we just prefer to let sleeping dogs lie. The guy has been gone from the band for well over 4 years, and now that Bachman Turner Overdrive has become so big nationally, there's an incessant barrage of questions about Randy, and really it's so long ago already that it's just stirring up old news, you know. But we don't like to be asked about him. We don't really like to be asked. I don't know. We'd have to be asked first before they would spring to mind.
You know what? Nobody ever asks us about the present band.
Well, I'm going to get everything out of you I can, I guarantee you.
Most interviews are interested in what's really gone down and
past, not the future.
They want all the dirt.
I want to know. I'm going to ask you one more question about the past, and then I'll let that ride. Have you ever recorded a song that you wish you could have captured and brought back and not released, and said, oh, you hear it and you say, I don't like it, I wish I had it back? Was there ever one of your hit singles? Some people don't even enjoy hearing their own hit single, I've heard. Do you think of anything that you're displeased with now?
I didn't like Laughing for a long time, but then I heard it as a flashback about a week ago on the radio, and it didn't sound too bad at all. So I think it comes and goes. You know, you have certain tunes that are favorites for like 6 months. For 6 months you love it, and then for 6 months you hate it, and then you like it again. And we've recorded so many songs that, of course, there are a lot of them that we wish we could have altered a little. And you say, well, you know, I could have done a better solo, or I could have sung a little better, or we could have mixed it a little differently, but you reach a point when you're recording in the studio that you have to be satisfied. Otherwise, you'll never sleep again. So there's no such thing as perfection, and you just reach a point at that point in time where you say that's good enough for now.
It's been a delight to have you gentlemen on the show. I think probably our audience is probably most interested in hearing you do your latest single, which is Clap for the Wolfman. And there's an interesting story behind that, I'm sure, too, having one of the nation's top disc jockeys voice on the album.
Right.
You know, they say there is a hook. There's always got to be a hook to make a record a hit. And I don't know what you consider American Woman, the hook on American Woman. It's just probably the content and the way you performed it. But what would you say was the hook on Star Baby, as an example? And that record gets played on every jukebox in town, continues to get played, even though it's now down and off the charts.
It was just a simple little song, 2.5-minute song, and it wasn't very complicated at all. You know, the hook was the simplicity of it, I guess. It was just a dumb little tune that we released as a single, and it did wonders, you know,
Easy to
all
listen
over the
to.
country. Yeah, it
Easy to
was
enjoy.
very short, and AM radio, of course, they really like that. And I don't know, it was just a happy song. There was no heavy connotation about anything. There wasn't any introspection or anything, you know, any attitudes or anything like that. It was just a very stupid, simple little song.
A lot of people
And
have
you know, danceable, I guess, is one of the things that they say.
Would you classify your music just simple, good rock and roll?
Happy, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a bunch of different things now, because with the new album, again, it sounds like about 5 or 6 different groups at times. It sounds very different from cut to cut, so it's really hard to say, I guess. But we try not to get stuck in one element. That's the main thing.
Most people have the opinion that rock stars of today, and you people certainly qualify under that category, are cleaning up, so to speak, money-wise. But there is a lot involved, I understand, in the travel, the expense of traveling, getting your equipment from place to place.
People
food,
don't realize. They think that the whole thing is Playboy bunnies and champagne, but they're not there when you get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to get on a plane to fly 6 hours to get somewhere else to play that night. They start setting the equipment up approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon for an 8 o'clock concert. We fly about 57 pieces of equipment around, and we don't have nearly the stuff that some groups do. Nowhere near. Some groups have 2 semi-trailers full of equipment to drag around. Believe me, it's not just 90 minutes a night, you know. There's an awful lot more involved.
As a matter of fact, to confirm the statements you're making right now, we are taping this interview that you're watching at 1:30 at night. So these gentlemen have just come off stage.
We look pretty good, don't we?
Yeah, hey, you're well preserved. Yes, you are. You're well preserved. And you've done, what, 2 hours on stage?
Yes.
Just 2 hours.
And your day started at what time?
You're so
I know I did a
wonderful.
radio interview with you on at 3 this afternoon, so I know you were up sometime this afternoon at least. And then you've got another concert tomorrow evening. Gentlemen, I don't want to hold you any longer. I appreciate your time, and especially appreciate you coming out this hour of the morning. And we'd very much like to hear some music if you do it for us.
Certainly.
The new song, Clap for the Wolfman. Stay tuned. We'll be back with Guess Who in just a moment.